Hello and welcome to episode 14 of Late Night Linux, recorded on the 26th of June 2017. I'm Joe, and with me are Jesse.
My head still hurts.
Phelim.
Evening, Governor.
And Ikey.
I have no intro.
Oh, well. So this is a little bit of an unusual episode in that we have just done FOSS Talk Live. You've probably heard us talking about it on previous episodes, so we'll be hearing the live show from that in a bit. But we thought we'd do a couple of news stories first. So let's talk about Debian. So they recently released Debian 9 Stretch, but it didn't go to plan, did it?
Somebody forgot to include a library, so it didn't decompress. I don't know how somebody forgot to include a library, and I don't know what they were testing up till now for ISOs, but yeah, whoops.
So they had to do a point release of the ISO.
I don't want to be mean here, but it wasn't the ISO tested before, releasing it.
Apparently not.
So why would you release it? I mean, was, actually starting up on boot a stretch goal? Excuse the pun.
Oh.
Meow.
So what, it wouldn't even run in a VM or anything then?
Well, I mean, I'm reading the log, and it's just like, nope.
That's weird. Surely they would at least spin it up in a VM, if not have some sort of test machine to try it on first. I mean, I presume that you do that, Ikey, with your ISO releases.
Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't want this to happen. It's sort of embarrassing.
Yeah, it's like putting out a podcast and not listening to it first to make sure you didn't fuck it up.
Obviously, I'm not trying to insult them. Mistakes do happen, but, well, I'm sure if Richard was here, he would tell us which system to use. OpenQA would have solved this, I believe.
Well, it probably would have, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it does actually catch stuff like this. There's a boot sequence, and basically it comes down to having the right QA processes in place, right? Up or down is QA processes. You would have... Because I know I'm going to insult people by saying this, but you think somebody would have fucking caught this. I mean, obviously they did, just, after.
Yeah. Well, it didn't take them long to put the point release out, to be fair.
Yeah, to be fair to them.
But what's this hyperthreading business all about?
Yeah, so it looks like CPUs are broked, and they've been broked for a wee while. And if you can't fix it with a firmware, which for certain models you can only get if you're a system builder, then you have to disable hyperthreading. Some fella who was one of the developers of Oh Camel, Where Art Thou, he managed to discover it when he was trying to do some compiling, and things weren't working out properly. So there's a bunch of different processors that it affects from Intel. Some of the Skylake and KB Lake, and yeah, oops, again.
But this doesn't just affect Debian, does it?
No, it affects anything. Anything that uses hyperthreading will get affected by it, if you've got the particular model.
So I guess your processor has to be doing something that requires hyperthreading to be going on. If you're just doing day-to-day things, it's not a problem. But if you then push it and that hyperthreading is used, then this is where you get problems.
But isn't just running a desktop using hyperthreading?
Well, it looks like it doesn't always show up. It looks like there's particular events where it doesn't seem to happen, because it wasn't one of those things where, what was it, one of the old Pentiums that couldn't do floating point numbers properly or something like that, and it used to constantly fail. It's not like that at all. It does seem to be non-straightforward to detect, but it does definitely happen, all right.
So what's the worst case scenario here then? Just corrupt data and stuff?
Yeah, I mean, they describe corruption with running programs and also possibly data loss. So, and, abnormal system behavior. So, I mean, if you're losing data, then that's probably one of the worst you've got, isn't it?
Well, it could be worse. It could fry my processor.
Yeah, but then you wouldn't have a processor that got this bad situation. So it's sort of
So it'd be a fix, yeah.
So these are from September 2015, and there's a fairly easy, command to run to check if one of the processors that you have in your machine has this hyperthreading, and therefore if you're vulnerable.
I'm fairly sure that mine is, but I haven't had any problems, and now I'm starting to worry.
I mean,
Yeah, mine's a 7th gen i5, a 7200U.
You should just run this command, mate. We'll sit here and wait and see what happens.
Or maybe there'll never be a podcast because it'll be mangled.
Yeah. Yeah, why are you doing the backup recording? Suddenly you're on like shaky ground.
Yeah, my processor is on this list, so I don't know. I've not had any problems yet. So what's changed?
Which one are you on?
Kaby Lake 7200U.
So I'm going to put out a thing here where don't listen to anything Phelim says as the basis on your support, but maybe the Intel microcode package has taken care of it for you automatically. If you don't have a fully open distro, like Triskel levels of freedom, you generally will have the microcode package enabled, which allows the kernel to be, not the kernel, but the actual processor to be patched, because there's software that runs inside it as well. So they can fix all that sort of stuff. So generally you've got that enabled by default, and it's I think they used to call it driver jockey or something bizarre in Ubuntu, I think. That was something that we used to pop up and say, oh, you want MP3 and you want Flash and you want the proprietary graphics driver if you've got it. And the microcode was one of the things that got added to that as well. So I would imagine you probably have it fixed.
Right, yeah, because I've got the Ubuntu kernel.
What about Solus, Ikey? Why do you do the kernels on that?
So this isn't specifically a kernel thing. The kernel enables this to take place. The microcode is loaded at very, very early boot. Best way to describe it is effectively it uploads it into the CPU at very early boot. To do it permanently, like in a proper persistent fashion, you would have to effectively flash your firmware. So you can get one of the vendor tools, you just update your firmware that way, and there's already updates out for this. If you're using the Intel microcode package, which if you're using Ubuntu, would most likely be installed, and that would come through as a hardware enabling update. And they've done that for quite a way back already. Even on the older Ubuntu distros, they're still getting the hardware enabling updates. This is something that would come through on those. So once you boot up, you can actually check it in dmessage as well. If you pipe dmessage to grep and just look for microcode, you'll see something about a loader. And then it'll even tell you, it's uploaded, blah, 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 revision, blah, 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 into it. So it's very, very easy to check if you've already got the microcode stuff working. So in your case, it would then just keep updating.
So the moral of the story is Debian is too free.
I think Debian has it as well, though.
In their non-free repositories, but if you have a pure Debian system, it's not something that's ever going to be as part of a default installation. They also don't have automatic driver tools in terms of jockey-like tools where you have the detection and suggestion, because invariably you're going to be suggesting a proprietary driver. And that would go against what Debian stands for, which is, free stuff. So while they'd have it in a non-free repos, it's never going to be in a default installation. So you'd have to go out and install that package. If you're on Ubuntu, slightly different story. They're not quite on the same wavelength on that. And their tools enable and install that kind of stuff automatically. And yeah.
Yeah, well, my pro tip is if you want to install Debian, go for the non-free ISO. And then you don't have to piss around trying to get your wireless working and stuff by loading extra drivers, unless you've got a Triskel-friendly laptop, of course. So let's talk about mobile then, and Firefox Focus, which is their new browser for Android. It's been around for iOS for a little while, a version of it, and now we've got it for Android, and I'm very impressed with it. Who here has tried it?
Yeah, it's slick, isn't it? It's quite... It's elegant in the way that they've implemented it in its look and design. They've got rid of tabs and things. I think you just basically get a single browsing window, don't you, Joe?
Yeah, essentially.
And so that's sort of, while people might be, scrunching their face up at how on earth can you have a web browser that doesn't have any tabs, but actually, makes the UI a lot cleaner and slicker. And it blocks tracking ads by default. It can block analytic trackers and social trackers, and when you've finished your browsing, there's a permanent bin button on the front. As you just press that, and it'll delete all your cookies and any other information that might have been collected during your browsing history. So it's aimed at privacy. But as you say, Joe, it's quite slick looking and quite fast.
It's like incognito mode on steroids, isn't it?
Yeah. And I think they might have taken this from a film, Browse, Erase, Repeat. Isn't that the tagline from who's that little tiny actor who does Mission Impossible?
Tom Cruise.
Yeah. Isn't it like Live, Die, Repeat or something?
I have no idea. You're talking about a Mission Impossible movie?
No. It's the one where it's like the Groundhog Day where he keeps on getting killed and waking up again.
Yeah, with Emily Blunt.
Yeah, it's got a bird in it as well, yeah.
That's incredibly sexist, Jesse. How dare you? Phelan, have you tried this then?
Well, they also have a project with millions of pounds offering how to make the web decentralized. Well, I've got a suggestion for them. First off, stop releasing it first on iOS, and then also stop releasing it only through bloody Android App Store and the Apple App Store. How about putting it through F-Droid? Because then maybe some of us who actually care about things like this could try it.
Oh, no, I'd incorrectly assumed that it was on F-Droid.
Yeah, no, it's not.
Well, this raises an interesting question. So it's available on iOS, yeah?
Well, it's not exactly the same thing, but it's similar.
Right, well, that's what I was going to get at, because if you go on the Apple platforms, I think we even spoke about this last time, but you have to use their web engine. If you're doing anything on Apple, you have to use their web engine. So if it's Firefox on Android, it's not going to be using Firefox's engine. iOS, sorry.
Yeah, well, even on Android, though, yeah, it's not using Gecko. It's using WebKit.
So, this is going to sound really cruel, but is the name itself an oxymoron indicating that perhaps Firefox have lost theirs?
They do seem a bit ADHD, don't they? And there's always a story of like Firefox is now making some videos of something, or
Firefox on mobile, Firefox on tablets, or Firefox OS for mobiles, and then no Firefox. And then to come along with Firefox Focus when you clearly have none?
That is a good point. However, this is a really good browser.
Would you recommend it? Is the main thing. Never mind what Mozilla do.
I would definitely recommend it.
How can you have a browser with no tabs? Really, sorry.
Well, that's the one thing it's lacking, right? But let me just say this. For what its purpose is, it's like Unix style. Do one thing and do it well. Completely private browsing that you can completely delete with one touch of a button. Even stuff like I dig through the options, and it even what's the recent apps button? When you press that, you get thumbnails of each thing. You get a generic thumbnail for that. Who knows why that might be useful? But it's supposed to be doing one thing, and it does it bloody well. It's the fastest browser I've ever used on Android.
So it's better than my Samsung internet browser that's pre-installed.
Yes, just a touch.
Okay, well, I might have to replace it.
So I'm using Lightning within one button I can go open incognito tab, and that does it really well as well.
We need to go back to the glory days of operamini.jar.
Opera.
That's what I said, Joe.
You're on my side. Love it.
And it plays animated pictures as well, of which there is no acronym.
GIF. Well, I am really hopeful for the future for this. I really hope that they add tabs to it, and then it could be just a standard browser for me, I think, because it's just so fast. When you want to quickly look something up, okay, when you want to have cookies and stuff, you want to stay logged in, but if I want to just quickly research something, this would be my go-to browser if it had tabs.
It sounds terrible.
So that the launch page is just a search bar, and as you type it in, it goes straight to Google and searches for the thing you've typed in. So you don't even have a grid of recent places or pre-populated with Facebook or the other adverts they used to have and what have you. But if also they've said that if there are things that fail because you've got all these blockers turned on, you can go through and individually turn them off, and then the website that you're trying to look at will populate in the way it should.
Yep. All right, well, we are not doing much news this time, but we're going to get a bit of a scoop here by the looks of things. So, Ikey, you have decided to appeal to Unity refugees with a pretty big Budgie update.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't... Yeah, no, that's pretty accurate. They're trying to think of some bullshit lead-in, But yeah, no, that's basically it. So, I mean, the story is supposed to be that we're supposed to wait for Budgie 11, and then we make desktop great again, TM. But, there's definitely problems with an existing Budgie 10, and let's be straight, it's going to take me a while to write Budgie 11, right? It's just common sense. And kind of got sick of some of the issues that exist in Budgie, so it was Monday last week, literally a week ago. It was like, hey, let's have a week hacking on Budgie. What's the worst that could happen? So instead of doing a 10.3.2, it'll be like a 10.4 or a 10.5. I've fixed all the popover crap. We was using GTK popover before, and basically it would mean your menu might appear from the bottom, it might appear from the top. There was loads of little glitches, really horrible stuff, being completely replaced around custom widget. Performs a lot better. I had someone, Cyber was testing it on a really slower computer than mine, and like the FPS is absolutely fine. We got vertical panels as well now. So you can't just have one panel. You don't even have to have just two panels. You can have 4 panels for the price of one. And you can have vertical panels, horizontal panels. There's a nightlight applet as well, which lets you control the new GNOME night stuff. Did I just say GNOME? I actually said it right. Wow.
That's good. I've been using that nightlight. It's really good. So really helpful. It's on now. In fact, it's not late night Linux, and it's surprising when you unuse it, when you turn it off. It's surprising how glaring that your web browsers have become stuff. So nice addition.
Yeah, I mean, I've been using it to simulate actual daytime. Just turning off during the day. It's like, oh, Christ, that's what I feel like.
It's how you get your vitamin D, isn't it, from the monitor?
Yeah, just sit here all day and say, whoa, I may have to take it easy now, too much of the old UV.
And so you can have a Unity-style layout then, is the bottom line?
Yeah, kind of. So you can have like a left panel, you can have a top panel, you can put the two of them together and have the Budgie menu sort of slide out to the right from it and stick the icons on the left. Because it's not just like having different panels, the applets then have to support them. And it was all designed to be horizontal only, which led to some interesting bugs. It's like, that's a rectangular panel. Is it vertical? Is it horizontal? It's a bit of both. So they've all been designed so they can dynamically update to where the panel is on the screen, and it manages them all nicely. And one of the things that stopped me doing it before, apart from the excuse of Budgie 11, is Raven always used to come out from the right-hand side. And it stopped me for ages. Like, how am I going to have a right-hand panel if there's effectively already a right-hand panel by way of Raven?
Yeah.
And then I went out for a smoke one evening. It was like, oh, yes, sausage, of course. Make it appear from underneath the panel and anchor to the side of the panel. It was so obvious, but it took me ages to figure it out. So if you've got a right panel, it will like cling to the side of the panel, slide out from underneath it. But if you've got a left panel and no right panel, then it will slide out from underneath that and cling onto that edge. So it basically anchors itself in the most appropriate position. So now you can focus on having lots of horizontal space, and you can just have like effectively your system controls all in one area, instead of having huge, long, horizontal panels. Because, like, I've got a widescreen 28-inch monitor here. It feels a little bit silly having this one really long panel across the top, when I could just have this one on the left, which is closest to me, and I just have Raven there. So, all of that and a load of bugs fixed, and it's going to be landing around the end of the week, after I've got some secret ISOs out to my lovely supporters.
Okay, cool. And also the menus got a bit of an update then.
Yeah, so funny enough, one of the bugs I found, because you type in DIS for displays, and you think once you got to S, it would show displays in the menu. It didn't. And I thought, well, originally I put it down to as like, well, it's broken, it's just stupid or whatever. It turns out that all of the GNOME Control Center items, I now say GNOME, I don't know which one to use. The big G. When you're using the big G Control Center items, it turns out if you actually cat the file, if you don't open it in something like gedit, why does everything now start with a G? Anyway, if you open them up in a text editor, you can't see it, but it took until I actually did like a cat of the file itself. They have an invisible hyphen, a Unicode character. I don't know the name for it, but that's so that they can reflow the text better in the big G Control Center. I couldn't see it was there, but the text itself is basically DIS, invisible hyphen, and then PLA. It's like, that's why I couldn't find any of these items. So I taught it about that and basically poured it across the logic from Brisk, to actually search for things and show them in a sensible order, instead of just randomly pushing them higher up in the list. So it now behaves a lot more like Brisk menu does. And people seem happy enough with Brisk. So it's like, okay, we'll just use that again.
When are we getting the whisker menu? When are we getting the whisker menu?
So on that, no. Actually, somebody did ask, I know it was a little bit off topic, but somebody opened a GitHub issue the other day, and I'm assuming English wasn't their first language because they was talking about tattoos. I'm assuming they meant logos, but they was asking me if they could stick a tattoo on the panel to open whisker menu in XFCE on Budgie. At which point, my brain just started to melt a little bit. And I was like, why have I stopped drinking recently? I could take up this sport again to cope with events like this.
You stopped drinking? What's wrong with you, man?
Yeah, I haven't been out in... Oh, Jesus, no. When did the Queen come in? No. No, I haven't been out in about 2... I've been out, but I haven't gone to pubs or anything in about 2 months or anything. Yeah, it's been quite a while.
That's probably why you didn't come to FOSS Talk Live then.
Yeah, sobriety, you know. I mean, between that and watching everybody, watching my figure. You know.
Don't worry, Ikey. I'll watch it for you.
Cheers. That's the right answer.
Right then. So this episode of Late Night Linux is sponsored by Entroware. And Entroware are a company in the UK who actually care about Linux. They sell laptops and desktops and a server pre-configured running Ubuntu or Ubuntu Mate 1604 or 1704. And they've got a huge range of machines. And like I said, they actually care. Linux is going to properly work on them. And not just Ubuntu that they come with. I've tried all sorts of different distros on my Ether and they've all worked perfectly. You don't need to have some custom kernel and stuff like that. So if you're looking for a laptop, anything from something quite basic for a bit of web browsing all the way up to something really powerful with discrete graphics, the latest NVIDIA cards that are going to allow you to do graphic design and 3D art and machine learning and video editing, that sort of thing, you're bound to find something at entroware.com. And they ship to the UK, Republic of Ireland, France, Germany, Italy, and Spain. And because they're a relatively small company, if you're looking for something specific, if you want something customized, then they'll do that for you. On the website, when you go to buy one of the machines, there's some basic customization, adding RAM, different size SSDs, that sort of thing, a couple of different processors usually for each machine. But if you get in touch with them, they're really good at responding and they can customize something for you and make sure you have a great Linux computing experience. So go to entroware.com, and if you do buy something from them, there's an option at checkout to tell them where you heard about Entroware. And if you put in Late Night Linux there, they'll know we sent you. So yeah, go to entroware.com for all your Linux computing needs. So a little bit of admin then. Thanks to everyone for supporting us with PayPal and Patreon. It's very much appreciated. We don't name names unless you specifically want us to, but you know who you are, and it's, you know, we really do appreciate it. If you want to join those people, then go to latenightlinux.com/support for the various options there. And if you want to get in contact, latenightlinux.com/contact and /Telegram for our Telegram group. On the contact page, there's email and stuff like that as well. But Telegram's where we hang out. That's where all the cool kids are.
And Joe.
Oh, yeah, and me as well. Yeah, fuck you. So, okay, on to our FOSS Talk Live thing where, well, I'll explain on the thing. Ikey wasn't there. But the picture at the very beginning of Ikey, I'll put in the show notes or a link or something, and you'll see why everyone's laughing. So yeah, here we go. Hello, and welcome to Late Night Linux at FOSS Talk Live. Yay! So I'm Joe, and with me are Jesse.
Hello, everyone.
And Phelim.
Hello.
And unfortunately, we've got no Ikey, although he did send a message for us. My new job as a chimney sweep financially limited my ability to travel to London. Press it again, please.
It's like he's here.
Yeah. So it's not going to be a normal show for us where we do news and stuff. We're going to split the show into two sections. The first one is the good and the bad of Linux. So what we like and what we don't like about Linux. So Jesse, let's start with you. What do you like about Linux? What's your good thing?
Let me check my laminated show notes. So it's the fact that you've got nice, usable, uncomplicated software in a single place to get it from. So when I came from Windows across to Linux, I opened up the software center and I typed in, images, and you got all the various image viewers and image editors, and you could pick and choose. And what I realized after picking and choosing 2 or 3 is that you don't get all the cruft and the crap and the stuff that you don't want when you've come from Windows. You've been searching around for that exe, and you eventually install it, and you get all these weird things pop up the next time you start up your computer. You get all, your Internet Explorer is got this horrible stuff on it, and actually you don't have to pay for anything. None of this freeware and things, and so you have a nice, easy place to go, and you can choose the ones that you like. You can delete them if you want to, and what have you. And the fact that you have this place in the software center that allows you to get stuff and you can pick and choose was fantastic.
You say you can delete them, but try deleting one thing from Ubuntu and it just rips the whole desktop out.
But that's not a program that you would use. That's the whole desktop. So I mean, if you're trying to pick an MP3 encoder, you type in MP3 and you've got this list that you want to look at. And I thought that was a great differentiator between how Linux works and how Windows works.
Were you not confused by the choice?
No.
All that serial.
What I don't understand is that people sort of say, oh, you don't need a software center because you just type apt-get install or pacman-syu and install and what have you. And I think you do need a software center because then you can filter and find things that you didn't know. Like if you suddenly took up mountain climbing and there was like a mountain climbing bit of software somehow, you could just type in mountain and you would find it.
Well, how would this software work exactly? Tell me more.
I'm not a developer. That's not a question I know.
All right, Phelim, what's your first one that you like, or what is the thing you like about Linux?
It's a bit heady, but for me, back in uni, in the days of yore, access to proper info was the big thing. You had books, they're about 60 quid a shot. You needed about 20 of them if you were to get all the right ones for the year. When I started uni, you didn't actually get internet access at all. So, and most of the time you didn't know what to fucking look for anyway, because there was nothing out there that you knew. Search engines existed, but what, Alta Vista or something, God knows, I can't remember. But for me, now it's just the amount of info that you can get access to, decent info. And the only thing that limits you is your own laziness, really, if you choose not to look for stuff.
So you can watch the YouTube videos, but actually opening up the terminal and doing the typing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess, I didn't do computing at uni, but for ditto, but for engineering, like there's a high barrier to entry. Whereas with Linux, there isn't really a barrier to entry because you can find it online and you can find a lot of information. And like you say, if you put in the time and do the legwork, you can work out how all these things piece together.
Sort of. You are the limit.
Yeah, there's a lot of legwork.
Yeah.
All right, well, my one, we were supposed to put these in a doc beforehand so we wouldn't have the same thing, and I'd swear yours wasn't that, Jesse. Or maybe I read it wrong, because my one is transparent updates, basically. The thing is that with Windows or Mac OS to a slightly lesser extent, or Android, when you get updates to things, if you get updates to your operating system or your applications, you basically have no idea what's happening. Whereas with Linux, you get a clear idea if you want to. You can have as much idea as you want. You could have it completely opaque with the software center saying this update is available and then it just updates it for you. Or you can do it via the command line, as I tend to, and I think, okay, well, why is VLC being updated or why is SSL or whatever? And then if you want to take it that extra level, you can go and read the change logs and read what bugs are being fixed and whatever. Whereas if you're on Windows, you press update and then just hope for the best. Whereas with Linux, it doesn't matter which version of Linux, which distro, they're all pretty much the same, that you have this transparency. And so that is, for me, the best thing about it. And it's kind of similar to what Jesse was saying with the package management generally. I suppose that, yeah, you could combine the two of us there and say that it's just the package management as opposed to just downloading random executables off the internet and then running, snap install the thing that you've downloaded. Ooh.
But I mean, your Windows gets updates. You don't have to download random things. You could get or buy all of your software from Microsoft, and it would all get updates.
Yeah, but you still don't know what's happening when it's updating. You know that there is an update available. You don't really know how long it's going to take, and it just updates itself. Whereas with Linux, if you care enough, you can find out exactly why it's been updated and work out roughly how long it's going to take.
And do you look at what the updates are going to be?
Well, yeah, I don't look in as much detail as looking at changelogs and stuff, but I don't use the -y, for example. I always look, okay, these things are going to be updated. Oh, it's a kernel update, so I'm definitely going to have to reboot, that sort of thing.
Yeah, there's a benefit to installing and updating on the command line. You get to see all the changes that are about to happen, because the number of times that I've gone to accidentally install something, well, purposefully install something, obviously, but not realizing that it's from the dreaded KDE side of the fence, and it pulls in like 1,000 things.
Fuck you.
Welcome to the family-friendly podcast.
Who said that?
We're not family-friendly anymore, not this year. But do you know what I'm saying here? Everyone in this room must have felt the pain of installing Windows and then pressing update.
The fact that Windows Update runs on a 56k modem and takes about 3 hours to get one fucking update, whatever that update is.
Yeah, and for me, security updates are the key to security, obviously. Like, if you don't keep things up to date, then your software isn't going to be secure. And so that's the first thing I always do with any operating system. Whenever I turn on a computer, that's the first thing I do, check for updates. And I just love the fact that in Linux, it can be so quick rather than my experience with other. You can download an ISO, say 1604 or 1404 or whatever of Ubuntu, and install it and update it in a few minutes and then be ready to go. Whereas with Windows, you're looking at a couple of days if it's an older version. You're laughing, am I wrong?
Yeah, because you've got to man it to restart it and turn it off and turn it on again, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Right, so that's the positive bit out of the way. 10 minutes. We had to start on a positive note, didn't we? Let's talk about what we hate about Linux, or what we slightly dislike. So I suppose start with you again, Jesse.
Yeah, so you sit around for a couple of weeks and you ponder as you're using Linux what the things that you enjoy are and where you sort of bang your head against the wall. And some things I wrote down and thought maybe I can't do that or this or that. And I have to admit, it's the terminal. And the problem with the terminal is that there's too many nuanced little things. The terminal itself, fine. My use of the terminal has increased massively since Raspberry Pis came out. I SSH into all of them. I don't have any head ends. So I just basically SSH into them front end. And I am therefore on the terminal a lot. And I'm writing all these bash scripts for the Raspberry Pi because I haven't upgraded to Python yet. And so I know there's no barrier because that's one of the best things about Linux. But yes. I could do if I put the time and effort in. And so I end up with all these weird bash scripts. And I find that if you SSH, for copying, it's a lowercase r for recursive. And with ls, it's a capital R. And with something else, it's, you have to type in the whole name. And when you do SCP, it's a different one. And there's so many little nuances to it. And if you use double quotes, it expands it. If you use single quotes, it expands it, but it doesn't do it in a certain way. If you use backticks, it expands. It's just like, why am I having to put backslashes when I put a space in? Like, just these things that you think, why can't it just be... I enjoy it, but why can't it just be that bit easier?
Well, let me just translate. I don't like Linux because it's too complicated.
Every time I have to write a bash script, I'm online more than I am typing bash scripts. It's like, why has this not quite worked the way I expect it? Oh, I see. Yeah, okay. I'm supposed to have put a flag in here and not put a flag in there and done this and done that, or I put it back in, dick around. Basically, copy and paste until my bash script works. And it is a bit painful on the terminal, but I agree it's one of the best things. That was my sort of issue with it. It's one of the best things. It's one of the things that if someone's got a problem, you can generally get on the terminal and make things happen without having to know all the nuances between how KDE or GNOME or XFCE or whatever how the GUI works. You can always do it, and irrespective of what your foundation is. So I know it is a good thing, and I use it all the time and I enjoy it, but I just find myself sighing quite a lot where there's another thing that hasn't quite gone right because I've not put a slash in somewhere. Just
script it so you don't actually know what your own scripts do in a good year's time. You'll be fine.
Not even a year. Like the next day, if I've sobered up, and And you look back and you're like, why wasn't I drunkenly adding comments in this? Oh, why is that doing
Just
that?
keep drinking and you're fine.
Oh yeah, some of my best scripts will come out of that. Yeah, the Raspberry Pi out there is doing its thing from one of those.
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Well, it did last year. We never released a video because you never thought it was perfect enough.
Yeah, so I was trying to make a bash script that would crop the video to pan, and it turns out that I'm not that clever at what I do or don't do, and so I never released it.
Right. Well, what do you hate about Linux then, Phelan?
Okay, so who here has a Apple machine that they can run Linux on it, or they can run OS X? That's fine. Okay, there's less than I thought. Because I was about to complain about you, so there's not enough of you, but...
Suspicious hands up from the Linux voice boys there. Let's,
So, some of you people and others, the fact that you don't like freedom enough, and it's a painful place to be actually caring about freedom, I find. Because I wish I could just sit back and go, oh, great, the new version of Windows or Apple is coming out. I can fucking queue like a bell end at 12 o'clock at night and get my latest shiny, and it'll be all brilliant. But no, I'm stuck at home going, fuck this shit. I'm now fucking stuck in a whole pile of server upgrades I don't want to do, but I still feel I have to because it would be wrong not to. It's like you have to make the choice to either be free or you're just, if nobody else is going to do it, someone's got to, I feel. And I wish a lot more people would do. Now, I know Microsoft tried to scoop me on this one by releasing their source code by mistake or whatever they tried to do last night.
I'm sure that'll be on our news on Monday.
But I mean, I don't know. It's a painful world to be, I think, because a lot of times you get really disgruntled by, like, Wimpy had a keyboard that you need, or a caddy or something that you had to upgrade, and you had to fucking install Windows 10 to do that. That's fucking bullshit. I'm fucking sick of that crap. Why the fuck we can't just get through things, do things easily, you know? I'm not saying that they have to give all their company secrets away, but I just think a bit of a leeway with freedom would be nice, where we could all just fucking work together on things.
Is your issue there that everyone isn't doing freedom, or that the people who support Linux and use Linux aren't flying the flag of freedom? I mean, because I can see you on your rock with your flag waving in the air. I mean, the people listening can't see it, but he's stood abreast of rock waving this flag of freedom. But I mean, is it that our community isn't invested in the freedom part of the free software, or is it that the world isn't invested in freedom?
It'd be nice if the world was, but I'll just take the community for a start, because, you know, we have to try somewhere. But I don't know. It's almost like we get distracted by the shiny first, and then after that, maybe if we're lucky, we'll get something else on top of that. But
isn't it a problem of pragmatism? Too much pragmatism and not enough freedom?
If you're a big company, surely you can go to your OEM providers and say, look, the BIOS does not need to be fucking locked up. There's nothing magical in a BIOS these days. Surely that could be done. Can't we just release an open BIOS? And we don't have to have LibreBoot, which works on 2 laptops. If you're lucky, you can get them.
Yeah, if you've soldered them and stuff, yeah.
Yeah, and then it's 3 times more than a standard laptop. If they could make a core system, that'd be great.
Yeah, fair enough.
I do realise that in this crowd, can we have a show of hands of everyone who hasn't got Google services on their phone? Hasn't got. Okay. That wasn't a huge...
See?
Yeah, how many people have got an iPhone? Yeah. Oh, man, that's a lot of hands.
Okay,
yeah,
so that's a few more.
So, yeah, apparently I should have said phones rather than laptops. I forgot. I'm too stuck in my ways.
Yeah. All right, so the thing that I don't like about Linux is that there's always a caveat. So when I'm trying to sell it to someone, you can sell it on the freedom, the security, the fact that it's going to be faster, especially if you use a proper desktop like XFCE. But then there's always a caveat. For example, there's a friend of mine, he is 70-odd, and he doesn't know much about computers. He knows just about enough to get on Facebook and email and stuff like that. And he said that his laptop's really slow, and I've got an old laptop kicking around that I'm going to give him. And I've installed Linux on that for him. I think it's Ubuntu 16.04. And I need to take
That's where you went wrong.
What, it should have been KDE Neon?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, because that would have been really good. Well, no,
Yes.
Core 2 Duo. No. Anyway, so I've got to take it round to his. I can't just meet him in a pub somewhere. I've got to go round to his and make sure that his printer's going to work, for example, and that everything is going to work fine with his current setup. When he plugs his camera in, is it actually going to work? And okay, fair enough. The likes of Ubuntu have probably, if I wasn't using a lightweight desktop, it would probably work a bit better, that sort of thing. But there's always that caveat. I always have to ask someone, do you use iTunes? Have you got an iPhone? Do you use iTunes? If the answer is yes, then it's like, well, you're not going to be using Linux then, because there are ways to hack it, but there's not much point trying. I don't know. I mean, is that right? iPhone users, do you basically have to have? There's nods, yeah. So you have to have a Windows partition or some sort of Mac to plug it into. And so there's always that caveat. I don't know what it would take for us to get over that hill to the point where you could just install it on someone's machine and it will just work perfectly. Because I don't mind fixing little problems and having to do a bit of terminal stuff here and there, but you can't expect normal people to do that. And until we get to a point where we are there, if we ever get there, normal people are just not going to use Linux because it's going to break in different ways than people are used to. Because apart from Macs, which just work, I don't know, I've never used one enough to know, but Windows is just a shit show. How anyone uses Windows is completely beyond me. I mean, I use it for a couple of things, like printing, for example, because my printer just randomly stopped working when I updated Ubuntu. So, yeah, Windows is just terrible, and people have all sorts of problems with it, and they just accept it, I suppose. But if you put a different operating system on their laptop, they expect it to work 100% perfectly. And when one thing goes wrong, oh, you've broken my computer. And I have had that with people, and they've gone back to Windows as a result of it, which is pretty depressing, really, for Linux as an ecosystem and as a community. And so I wish I had some answers, but that's the one thing that I don't like about it. I pick the security updates as the thing I like most. And don't get me wrong, there are a million other reasons why I like it, security and performance and all the rest of it. But it's just that one thing, that caveat to my sales pitch. I can't, in good conscience, put it on normal people's computers unless I can support them.
But you've mentioned some hardware issues there. There's printers, there's Apple devices, what have you. Is there anywhere that you've had real software faults? I mean, I can think of the majority of the world don't have printers anymore. Like, who the bloody hell has a printer? I go to work to print my shit.
Well, the fellow who I'm talking about is retired and prints out the Guardian crossword every day.
He sounds like a hero. You should. But so there's printers, fair enough. But I would say the majority of people don't have printers. They may well have iPhones or not, but irrespective, most people need the browser, and that's, you hear it time and time again of you have a Chrome device or you just have your phone and you've got a browser and you've got most of the world, most of the things that people need a computing device for. So is there that massive hurdle, or are there specific examples where you can think of other bits of software that aren't necessary or aren't available?
Well, iTunes is a big one.
Yeah, but I mean, for the starter that I went with was, I love the fact there's all this available software, and I do have to install a few different things and find the one that works well for me, but I can find alternatives to most of the things I want. Do you think that people can't get over the hump of finding the alternative? Can't get over the hump of using something different in order to even start that process of finding an alternative? Or are they more forgiving on Windows? You've said that Windows is terrible.
Totally. You can do nothing wrong with Windows almost. They seem to there's a whole level of forgiveness that seems to be there for it, I find. But the minute that anything goes wrong with a Linux box, you're screwed.
Yeah. Well, you said, are there any other bits of software? And that is actually a very good segue into the second half of tonight's show. So let's talk about Adobe, because I had a thought the other day. It was probably a shower thought or something. And it was...
Picture it.
I know.
Picture.
Don't get too excited. So I was thinking, what would it take if you had a meeting with the executives at Adobe, and you could go in there and you could say to them, I think you should open source Photoshop and all of your Creative Suite stuff. And this is the business case for doing so. This isn't about ethics or the greater good or all of the fluffy stuff. hard economics. You should open source Photoshop, etc., and you're going to make more money as a result of that.
How?
Exactly.
Well, there we go.
No, exactly, right? There's fucking no way.
Does it edit pictures? Yes. Thanks.
Right. There's no way they would do it. They couldn't. There is no, as far as I can see, business argument for them to open source that software. Or the same with Avid, with Avid Video Editor or Pro Tools or whatever, or any of the stuff that the Linux Voice guys use to make their segment in a magazine. Oh, that's awkward. But if whatever it is, whatever that professional, whatever the stuff you're using to do your engineering, Jesse, those huge bits of proprietary software, I can't see a business argument for open sourcing them. So you could say, well, this is blatantly obvious. What the fuck are you talking about, Joe? What I'm saying to you. Okay. Well, that's the show over then. No. So what I'm driving at here is this. If there is no business argument for existing software to be open sourced, then does that mean that the only business argument for open source applies to new software? And if that's not even true, then do we have a situation where there is no business argument at all for open sourcing software and it's all just goodwill, community, all the fluffy shit, and none of the hard economics?
So are you saying open source is in everyone can see the source code? Is that, let's just define that.
No, I mean under a proper open source license, be it, copyleft or permissive, but like not just a leak, like, or not like vBulletin, which is just ridiculous, this PHP code that anyone can see that is somehow proprietary. I don't mean that. I mean properly open source, like FOSS.
So Adobe release whatever software it is into the ecosystem, and someone can take that and then start using their software and not have to pay any money. And they then have to do something which means that person is interested in paying money. And I could understand perhaps if the updates required you to have a subscription and therefore you get the update. But if that update is also released into the wild at the same day, then what's the point in having the subscription?
Well, look at Ardor, for example. If you want to run that, that's free and open source software. But because it's free and open source software, maintainers put it into distros, so it's an apt-get or yum install away, DNF install away, sorry. Whereas if you're on another platform like Windows or Mac, then you have to buy the binary. You can compile it if you are so inclined, but you can pay for it, and that is the business model of Ardor.
This is perfect. So what you're saying is that all software Windows and Mac users should pay for, and we then get it for free.
Sounds good.
Yeah, sounds great.
Yeah, like I say, the problem is if you can download it for free, people will. But then there are many examples like the Humble Bundles and other sort of games and Radiohead CD and things like this that they release as a pay what you want. People will pay money if they think it's useful and think it's good. And I just wonder whether you could make a business case that says, look, big companies and private individuals who have the money will pay for what we use, but you have to take that risk. If Adobe releases it for free and says you've been, you magazine or you sort of company that uses photo editing, for example, professional photographers or what have you, have been using this all this time. You've been paying us because we've forced you to pay us. We're now asking you to pay us. Do you think people, there's some titters, do you think people would carry on paying or halve their subscription and carry on paying?
Well, until they went completely cloud-based, that was essentially their business model. It was, if you don't want to pay for it, you pirate it, and if you want to pay for it, you pay for it. So it's basically going back to the old business model, as I say, before this cloud model where if their servers are down, you can't work for a day.
Yeah, I think the problem is software got too good. if it was broken all the time, you'd have to pay somebody to support it. But if it works, well, you don't need to.
So
it's like support contracts for Ubuntu. I've got loads of servers that are Ubuntu servers, but I don't pay support contracts for. It works fine. Sorry. Make it shitter. Snaps.
Right, well, it looks like we've run out of shit to say, so it's time for the roaming mic. So stick your hand up if you have got something to add. Right, yeah.
So I kind of wanted to agree with Phelim's point that, if there's no reason to pay for the software, there isn't. So the business I work for, we Photoshop a lot of pictures, but everything we need to do can be done in Photoshop CS5, so we've never bothered paying for anything newer. So why would we bother?
Well, I have got Photoshop 7, which is about 20 years old, which I still use for some things.
But is that just because they released it for free on their website?
It's because when I bought a desktop many, many years ago, there was a CD that said updates on it, a burnt CDR, and that was one of the things that was on there. So
this is kind of the point where it's like, I don't know, 5-6 years ago, we bought a site license for Photoshop CS5. No one's ever found any real reason for us to purchase a Photoshop CC license, so we've never bothered.
Yeah, it works well enough, so why bother?
Yeah, exactly. And this is a couple of hundred people using it, so like, why bother?
So they should have brought in an annual license that you had to pay for rather than a one-off.
But then why would we? Why would we bother paying more for this annual license when we've paid this £20,000 for this site license that just works and does what we need to do?
Well, that's why they've got this new business model, because of shops like yours that are doing that.
Yeah, exactly. It's
why don't you use something else like Krita or GIMP or whatever?
Quite frankly, because they've got a process that they built around Photoshop 15, 16 years ago, and it's too much of a business investment to use anything else. Yeah, exactly. There's an entire workflow around it.
So the problem there is the fact that we can't compete against it because to retrain everybody would be the cost.
It's too well embedded in, and we hire a lot of university students in who through university have been using Macs and Photoshop and stuff. So we'd then have to pay to train them to use GIMP or whatever.
I suppose I'll counter that with the fact that, in that case, then we have to go to education then, don't we, really? Then how do you tackle it at the source? You go to the people who are the students who have learnt on proprietary software and hardware that you don't have access to. So, therefore, you have to start the education side of it. Really.
But how do you do that? Do you mandate that they can't use proprietary software like Photoshop and mandate that they must use GIMP?
Oh, no, not at all. A little while ago, I was money restraints and what have you, couldn't get it off the ground, tried to get a business going, wanted a computer shop, but I also wanted it to be more than a computer shop. I wanted to be able to educate. Now, when I went to a business advisor, they said, well, what are you going to do to progress with such a business? I was like, what do you mean? They're like, are you going to do any outreach with that? I was like, well, that's actually a good idea, really. Yeah, I would love to be able to do outreach. Well, flyers was my first idea. No, you're thinking too small. You need to start then contacting the schools and stuff and saying, look, this is free. You don't need to pay this. In my knowledge, it was £500 for Photoshop. You just said 20 grand. That's a hell of a step up. And now step back down to sod all with Krita. Now tell me, is there much of a difference in learning curve between somebody brand new to Krita and Photoshop? Failing.
If you ever see me edit a picture, you know that I have no clue about image editing. But
right, okay then.
I think the problem is the fact a lot of educational places will get a discount. So they get
there we go.
Get it cheap, get you in, get you hooked.
Ignoring the cost of the bits of software, I think if you're going to educate people so that they can use word processors as the sort of generic term, you don't want them to just use Word. You want them to use Word, whatever the equivalent is on a Mac. You want them to use Abbey Word. You want them to use LibreOffice and things like this, so that they don't know the file or the the ribbon. They don't know that in the ribbon there is a thing that you have to do in order to get paragraphs or in order to get bullet points. You know that bullet points is a thing and you can find it. And so the idea that you would say we should force or we should have them using open source software and free software for the financial point of view, the fact that they're subsidized means that the cost is less. But actually what you want is such a range of software that you don't end up siloed in just the Microsoft way, which is what I have when I went to school, and it was always, this is Excel. It should have been, this is a calculus ability, and you can do graphs and you can do formulas and what have yous, but you get to use a different range of software.
Right, can I just ask the audience here, is there anyone here who is working full-time on free and open source software? Quite a lot of, okay. Anyone who's not working for Canonical? Keep your hand up. All right, and keep your hand up if you are willing to tell us what the business model is. How are you making money doing that?
Basically, anything that gives us the biggest margin is the reason we do it. But really, I wouldn't say we all know what we're doing necessarily in our business. It's a harsh way, but we sell whatever product. Who do you work for? That. No. It's a very small company, and basically we basically talk to people and go to meetings and whatever else, and whoever offers us the better deal for selling products, that's usually what we go for with the biggest margin. So sometimes it's a good model.
Sometimes is it proprietary software that you're writing then?
It's usually proprietary. For clients, if it's what they're familiar with, why try and make them change so much? You're going to get a lot of bounce back.
Right, but how do you make money from FOSS then? That's what I'm driving at here. Is if you are writing free and open source software, how are you making money from it?
I don't see that side of the market, so I can't see.
Okay.
So, although despite 5 minutes ago saying we use Photoshop, we also use a lot of free and open source stuff. So a lot of our back-end servers and feeds that go out use Linux boxes. And I think the only way that you really do it is to create a product which is sellable to people. Rather than selling them FOSS, you sell them something produced using FOSS.
Right.
Which doesn't really help the argument of, advocating for FOSS. But I think the only way you make money from FOSS is to create a product that people actually want.
And does your company contribute to the FOSS projects that you use then?
No, not really. I mean, we make use of stuff, but I wouldn't say that we contribute upstream to.
Yeah, or even financially.
I mean, we do. I mean, we donate money so for example, we use Redis quite heavily. So we donate money to the Redis project, but I can't say that we contribute upstream to Redis.
And the problem there is that while that is a great thing to have done and, making a contribution, but it's a contribution. It's not that you are paying the amount that they would be able to sell it to you had that been a closed source program.
Yeah, so for example, we've got a lot of Windows servers, which we pay Microsoft greatly for. But our Ubuntu servers, we've got support contracts on a lot of the physical boxes with Canonical, but probably not. We don't pay a support contract for every single Ubuntu server like we do every single Windows server.
Can I just jump in quickly?
Yeah, go on.
Completely anonymously.
I don't recognise this person.
No.
I said Sheeran, don't worry.
There's a guitar in the corner.
Don't tempt me. Our company's lost quite a bit of money by not contributing to open source software. We've been selling a product that's basically been a patched version of a bit of open source software that we haven't released our patches for upstream because we haven't been obliged to under the GPL because we ran the service, we didn't distribute it. And the open source project has moved on. Our patches no longer work with it. And we've had to completely rebuild a new system based on a new underlying product, which has cost quite a lot of money and quite a lot of time.
Whereas if you'd contributed upstream...
Exactly, we would not have this problem at all. We could just do apt-get update or yum update, actually.
So the new one, is that proprietary then?
No.
So for the new one, will they have learnt their lesson and then upstream stuff?
That remains to be seen.
Excellent.
Anyone else? Here we go.
Okay, so I run a IT company for 12 years, I did. And I've been with open source for well over 30 years. My first experience came out of Linux in general was at MCC Linux, if you can ever remember that, back at Manchester University. A friend of mine ran that, called Mad Wolf. Anyway, so I started up an IT company, okay, with Linux in mind. And the key thing I found, okay, right, with trying to convince people to use free and open source software was not so much, okay, the competitive technical aspects, but definitely the competitive fiscal aspects. So people like the idea, okay, right, of being able to work out exactly how much they're going to pay per month for whatever they're going to use. And with the advantage of open source software is you can always plan that ahead as your part of your support. So when you roll in a contract, okay, right, you try and do your support, okay, right, so it's structured among their fiscal lines. And that way, okay, right, they're quite happy, you're quite happy, okay, right, you can do the updates, okay, in plenty of time. And what's more, you can migrate them to better solutions in other ways. So my key aspect, okay, of what I used to do with my companies is I would sneak in, okay, right, and do something like swap out their print system for a print server using cups. Okay, they wouldn't notice the difference straight away, but I would say to them, okay, I'll be reviewing their print system, okay, right, and all of a sudden, okay, right, their print jobs never got lost again, okay, or, drivers never got, corrupted or anything else, Windows does to things. Next thing I'll do, okay, right, would bring up things like, mail servers, okay, right, all of a sudden the mail's not got lost, okay, right, all of a sudden, okay, right, you're not getting viruses in your mail, and the companies like this kind of stuff. But the key thing is, okay, right, when you bring in gradually. You don't just dump it onto them and kind of say, this is what you must use, right? This is all the only option. No, you've got to use your skill and your expertise to use your technical know-how to make these heterogeneous systems work together. So whether it's Windows, okay, whether it's Mac, whether it's, Android or anything else, okay, that you're trying to work with, you have to bleed it in gently. And once you bleed it in gently and they trust you to do that, then you can get your money out of, continuous service contracts. So.
That's a very interesting point. Thank you. That's great. I was pondering the difference between. I mean, how do browsers make their money?
Adverts.
But you can't put an advert if you're running Opera.
Yes, not Oprah.
If you're running Opera, then the fact that I use it and I don't know how to say it. It's my brother told me wrong when I was young. If you're running Opera and where is their money coming from? They're not putting adverts into my browser, so
they have a deal with the search providers, don't they?
But everyone changes their homepage or their landing page to be.
Oh, not everyone.
The way Opera make money is by doing deals to deliver the Opera software onto particular platforms. So you remember the Nintendo Wii, for example, shipped with Opera? That sort of thing is the way they make money. Firefox make money by getting paid by Google. Chrome and Safari don't make money at all. They're basically loss leaders for the platform that they're on. Internet Explorer's Edge these days is the same.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. Everyone's learning. And I just was pondering, we're talking about big sort of photo editing software, and I was trying to think maybe we've bitten off more than we can chew from Joe's suggestion when it comes to Adobe, but you might as well aim high, I agree. But is there another piece of software that I can think of that is smaller or more sort of normal person centric? Because Photoshop is either you're a professional photographer or you're a big company that use it and you're editing newspapers and what have you, and whether or not there's another bit of software that the general public would be willing to pay money for, and if you get that number of million people all paying £3, you can still run your company, you can still produce your software, and you can produce it open source. And maybe we should not aim for the biggest thing in the world and reel it back. And that's why I thought about browsers, but it turns out they aren't quite as not such an easy one to go for.
Yeah, Glenn had a question.
Put it this way. I have thousands of pictures. I've always taken pictures, and now I have a child. I've got even more pictures. On Windows, it's a pain in the arse to do, just manage them. On Linux, I still do find it a bit of a pain in the arse, because when it comes to it, all I actually want to do is just have something that will put them in a folder, display them nicely, maybe put them in a slideshow. I don't need loads of editing tools. I don't need to crop, twist, rotate, whatever. Maybe some of them here or there. It doesn't need to be absolutely perfect. I don't need all this histogram. I don't need everything else. Something basic, that would appeal to a lot of people. If you can make that even then multi-platform across tablets Android, iOS, stuff like that. That could apply to loads of people, loads of families, loads of mothers and fathers, so on and so forth. The list is endless.
And then how much would you pay for that?
Well, for myself personally, something basic like that, especially if it's going to be on the Play Store or App Store, then maybe £5-6. But then when you've got multiple thousands of people that buy said thing like that, then you're earning a lot of money.
Nah, there's loads of free versions. Why would you pay for it?
They're still clunky and not exactly as streamlined as I like. It should just be what you see is what you get, not look around and so on and so forth. Yeah, go ahead.
Right, this would probably better be the last one. Oh, he's giving me the light. This isn't a bloody stand-up show.
You're not wrong.
I think the answer to that, Glenn, is Google Photo. I'm a semi-technical user, and I find Google Photo does absolutely everything that me and my wife needs. It's almost a perfect piece of software.
It's proprietary
there is the
software.
rub, yeah. But it's proprietary software that does very, very well. I mean, it does its job so well that I almost don't care that it's proprietary software.
I find it painful when I go to look for a photo and on my computer. If I need to go and find a photo on my computer, I find it painful that I can't type in station and find pictures of stations.
And use you haven't got enough machine learning on your computer to...
It's painful. I'm so happy with Google Photos that I don't bother looking for things through dates anymore.
Exactly right. It's just so good at what it does. Why go anywhere else? I'm sorry to say that, but it's true.
Right, well, we have to bring this to an end. I'm sure we will continue to speak about this in the break. But thank you, everyone. This has been Late Night Linux at FOSS Talk Live.
Hey! What a belter. Great evening. Remember everything up until the end of our show. And then, actually, I did remember all the other shows, just that it got a bit fuzzy after that. But it was great to see everyone. There was a bunch of people that were there from last time, obviously, as well as the podcasters, and some new faces as well. I hope I got to say hello or meet and greet various people. I say, got a bit fuzzy. But how was your first live podcasting experience there, Phelim?
It was live. It was terrifying, but I believe I got through it. I may have blacked out partially through, and then it intermittently snipped bits of films in. So if I go mad in the middle of it, then that'll be why.
It didn't come across that way. I thought you did very well.
Yeah, I didn't even know you were nervous at all, man.
No, it just live speaking in front of people. It's not something I go out for to try and do, but I am actually looking forward to next time because we'll definitely do it next year. I've said it now. Definitely.
Oh, you've volunteered me to do it next year.
I have. Well done, Joe. You did a great job of that, so you should do it again.
Yeah, I'd love to do it every month, but it's just you'd never do it. You know, it wouldn't be special then, so it can't really be more than once a year, I don't think.
Yeah, no, it was great to see everybody. There was a really cool bunch of folk who turned up, and it was great to kind of see the other guys from podcasts too in the flesh again and meet up. And it's really, really, really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's nice being on first, isn't it? Because then you get your podcast, I don't want to say out the way, but you can then properly relax and enjoy the other people and not be thinking, oh, we're about to go on in a second or whatever. So it's good. And the other podcasts are great fun. I'm not quite sure how the Ubuntu podcast will go across because there's a lot of code being talked about that was on a projector. So it'd be a bit difficult as an audio podcast, but I'm sure they'll make it work.
Well, Marius from Ubuntu Fun, who was also there on the Mashup show, he filmed it all. And so we're hoping to get it on YouTube, but stay tuned for that. That might take a bit longer than getting the audio recordings out.
I wouldn't mind if he accidentally deleted all of the footage that I may be involved in. That'd be just fine.
Or just put a black square over you for the whole recording.
Well, Phelim, I mean, if it's any consolation to you, right? From where I was sat, you looked great.
Thanks, Ikey. Thanks, Ikey. You're the best.
One thing is, though, that I feel like I didn't get to talk to people as much as possible because I tried to make it the second time round. I knew more about what I was doing, but still there always seems to be something to do. So if you were there and you feel you didn't get to talk to me, then I'm sorry. I would have loved to have talked to you more, but come to OggCamp when I'll have much more time to talk to you.
You mentioned the Mashup show there, which was the last show, which will sort of build on the evening of sort of an international podcast or podcasters who had international partners or bent or whatever it was.
Co-host,
Co-host, yeah, that's the word. And when's that coming out? How's that coming out? Is that coming as a Joe Rest or what?
I haven't fully decided. It depends how much I care about counting the numbers, to be honest, because I can just put it as a link on the FOSStalk.com site. I've actually done the audio for it. It's ready. Ikey's actually listened to it already. So I could publish it shortly after this, but I want to think about it and double check that everything's all right. So I don't know. It will be coming out in the next few days, probably on FOSStalk.com. But follow me on Twitter or follow FOSS_talk on Twitter. Can't believe someone's got FOSS Talk and I had to put an underscore in. Anyway, follow that on Twitter if you want to find out, or we'll mention it on the next episode of Late Night Linux anyway. So I suppose with that then, we'd better get out of here. So yeah, we'll be back in a couple of weeks. So in the meantime, I've been Joe.
I've been Jesse.
I've been Phelan.
And I'm still Ikey.
See you later.